We'll start off then with our usual prayer for teacher and student. Om Sahana Votu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditam Astuma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So we have a question before us, which I can summarize like this. How can we easily adapt to sudden change so that it doesn't upset our sense of equilibrium? Would that be the summary of your question?
I think it's more, Swamiji, how to be happy with the ordinary. So from being premium to ordinary.
Okay, so you recognize from your language and from the courses that we've done, you recognize your individual problem. It's not a general problem.
Yes, I do.
Yes. And so we do this Enneagram workshop, which indicates exactly how to get out of this compulsion, because it's the key to a compulsion of a certain type. For those who haven't done the Enneagram, I have to explain. Supposing somebody is in their youth. When I say youth, that means from the year dot up until the change in their social transformation. Then during that period of time, they may feel or take on the pain and the difficulties and worries and anxieties of the parents or whoever plays a parental role. And this gives them a feeling of not quite being fulfilled, of always looking for some kind of meaning, and makes them feel special, not in a superior way, but in an out of place way, like a square peg in a round hole, as they say. And so unless we deal with this, of course, then we have a difficulty. That means any small thing can upset that. And that seems to be the case here. So let us see. What do we recommend? We recommend that you have to get out of yourself. What do we mean by that? We mean that all this self-analysis and this feeling I don't quite fit in, and what will I do and how will I have meaning, you'll see the common factor is I. And what does I mean? I means that assumption that we are a psychophysical individual that has difficulties and problems and has to work out some kind of strategy to survive. None of that has anything to do with spirituality. Spirituality begins when we have an internal opening in such a way that a sense of generosity of spirit develops. We become, instead of becoming a victim, we become something like a beaming entity, beaming out our newly discovered sense of freedom, our newly sense of fullness and perfection, beauty and joy. And as soon as we start doing that, then self-forgetfulness in the superficial sense goes away. We can summarize this as occupational therapy. And so what you're describing is the context of a work. That means you have to do action. All action is termed karma. Karma from the root krit, to do, to act. Even thought is such an action. In fact, most actions have to be preceded by thought. And even if they come from the unconscious area, at some stage or other, they were in the conscious mind and settled down into a bank deposit account. And that gets replayed as frequently as the clue or the indication or the trigger makes it come out. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't come out in a random way. It comes out through divine grace. It's something that escapes us normally. We say we have a psychological problem, so we have to now go into the unconscious area and so on. There's nothing that we can directly do to the unconscious mind. Everything happens in the conscious area. And so we have to make a conscious effort to change our habit and change our habit level. We do that systematically through cultivating all the aspects of our personality, namely love, will, intelligence, rationale, as well as the capacity to sit and meditate and equalize these things. Now, this last one, meditation, cannot take place unless we adjust things in our waking life. If we cannot do that, when we sit down to try to meditate, that's where try comes in, and it's a kind of a struggle. We either give up or say, well, we can't do it, or we resort to some other technique. And so it begins in situ. There has to be some formula where we take every kind of thing in front of us, every eventuality, and transform it into something positive. Nobody likes change. That's a general statement. In fact, one of the great resisting things is that Swami Vivekananda, in his commentary on Raja Yoga, would tell us that because the brain, he puts it in this way, because the brain has produced certain avenues, certain roadways, let's say, in the grey matter, and every new idea, every new concept or new idea, anything that is suddenly creative and routes us out of our normal way of thinking, and our comfort zone is what the modern speak is for it. Every adjustment that we make will have to take advantage of an inherent quality called neuroplasticity. We have to make new roadways in the brain. That's the way he puts it. Now, he doesn't use this language of neuroplasticity and all that, but today we have these terms and these understandings. So we have to learn to adapt in such a way that these internal feelings, which come from a compulsion, I'm special, for example, or and I don't like to do things ordinary, I like to be the odd person out, only because that's how I feel. I feel somehow isolated from the world because nobody understands me. And so my behavior becomes outwardly very exaggerated, artistic, with great mood swings, high highs, low lows. So we have to take our attention and we have to push it in a compassionate way toward the general humanity on that level, engaging our hands, engaging our heart, but anything that takes us away, takes our attention away from our own self. And then to have a penetrating vision about life itself. The Bhagavad Gita 17th chapter tells us a little bit about tapasya, the spiritual practice. It says that there is some austerity that is necessary for the body. That is the physical circumstances. That is our own health, our own physical health, and also dealing with other bodies, other individuals, other people. And the first thing that is mentioned really would be to do with Deva. You see, Deva Dvija Guru goes on like that. Worship of the Devas, of the gods. Unfortunately, it's translated in English as gods. And what do we mean by these gods? Of course, the term is Deva. Deva comes from Diva, meaning an illuminating factor. And why should we worship these illuminating factors? Because the whole of the physical world is broken down into waves. These are divine waves. all things are divine, is divine grace being dispensed in different ways. This leads us, if we understand this, to a love of God. Why would it lead us to a love of God? Because we love something that freely dispenses grace. Grace is a free-flowing gift that never stops and is always accessible. Something like a broadcast station. The grace of that broadcasting station is always flowing. The electromagnetic field holds all the free broadcast waves available, and we can at any moment tune in to the chosen ones, chosen frequency, as we want. When we tune in to exactly that broadcast, exactly that frequency, when we do that, then simultaneously we get the same thing on the receiving side as we get on the transmitting side. There's no difference. And so by tuning into that constantly, now of course there are specific practices for this, practices which involve love of God, involving, let us say, expressing feelings. Supposing you say, I love somebody, well, then that has to be expressed. And normally that's expressed through a kind of willing movement. I love you. Well, will you make me a cup of tea? Oh, no, I don't have time for that. No. You see, where's the love? I love you conditionally, but making tea is out of the question. I don't love you that much. only at my convenience. So by appreciating this divine flow, all these different waves, and even every talk, I think, more or less, I mention them as tanmantras or devas, illuminating factors. In their manifested form, they come out as the illuminating factors of the eyes, the ears, all the sense organs, the touch, the taste, the smell, all skins, all sounds, all pressures, all mouths, all tastes, and so on. And so these are all divine graces, and we should therefore be thankful for their free gift. So we have to worship the deities. And what is that to do with physical tapasya? What do we get from it? What we get from it is we are worshipping those elements that constitute the body and constitute the mental field as well. The mental field having this physical correlation that we call the brain. And then the twice born, that is all teachers and the wise people and so on and so forth. We have to have that kind of orientation toward that. This should be incorporated in our daily attitudes and worship. So when we sit down for our sandhya or for our, let us say, our morning or evening devotions or both, then we start off like that. We start off by expanding our heart in such a way there's an appreciation of all the divine elements that constitute the physical world, the subtle world from which it arises, subtle waves as part of a total universal cosmic ocean that we call universe. And that totality of that we call Purusha. Totality of that is a kind of cosmic person. And so therefore we offer our thanks for it, because without that, there's no physicality anywhere. And then without the teachers, without those guides, then we can't elevate the mind. We can't transform discord into harmony. We don't know the way. And then you see the wise, and then cleanliness of the body, of course, simplicity. Simplicity is a good one. Now, simplicity can be applied in many, many different contexts. There's that simplicity which says that we don't require more than is necessary. Minimalist. Instead of having 1,000 things, we get rid of them. This is Chinese call this the feng shui. That means everything is seen as a flow of energy, constant flow of energy, And if energy has to be deviated here and there, just like water, if we put obstacles here and there in water, it doesn't flow so well. And the principle of abundance is a flow. So we make sure that there's a good free flow, and that flow is divine energy. There's nothing else there. So simplicity, not complexity. Today's modern world invokes and encourages complexity more and more and more. There are many, many people in Africa, South America, and various parts of the world, and they don't know anything about televisions. There are some tribal people even who don't know anything about radios, televisions, microwaves, mobile phones, none of this. And then well-meaning, and put this inverted commas, well-meaning people come and say, you're poor because you live in a thatched cottage and you go into the forest and collect your daily things. And you've been doing it for centuries and centuries with such an integral knowledge of the flora and fauna of the forest, knowing what herbal treatments, what remedies are there. Most of our remedies, our drugs, have a South American origin, an Amazonian origin somewhere. It's a great storehouse, a great medical storehouse is there. And we can artificially manufacture from the chemicals that are discovered there. And they're told, well, you see, you're poor, you should have this, you should have that. You live in the forest, you should have a car. You should have a house made from bricks. You should have a diet of imported foods and canned foodstuff and so on and so forth. Well, up until that point, they never knew that that was the case. They never knew that they were in a deprived state because they weren't. This is one of the great, great legacies of colonialism in the last few centuries, probably, and more. And so, continence, that is chastity, that is the idea that we can control the senses, non-injury. We recognize some of these things as standard items within this category of yama, self-control. These are austerities of the body and are designed to exercise willpower. I will. I can will to eat or not. I can will to speak or not. I can will to act or not. So that has to be cultivated more and more and more. And as we cultivate these things, these simple, simple austerities, we move away from our egocentricity and move toward concern of other things and other people. And the poor me that is repeated becomes what a glory. Instead of saying what a pity, you say what a glory, what a glory. And then, of course, there is speech. See, speech has to be controlled. And speech is not just external. We are always talking to ourselves. Every mood or feeling that arises comes from an internal thought. That internal thought can cause offense to oneself and to others, can be useful or can be against us. So words that cause no offense, which are truthful, pleasant, beneficial, that means every speech that we give, every word we say internally, as well as externally. You can't have the external expression without the internal expression. You can call this nama rupa. A subtle word, a subtle idea, subtle concept comes out as, and is formulated internally as a word, and comes out as speech. So we have to make sure that all our speech is pleasant and beneficial and is a true expression of our beneficent attitude inwardly. Regular recitation, reading of the scriptures to guide us. These are the austerity of speech, and eventually there's serenity of mind, gentleness, silence, self-control, purity of heart. They are mental austerity. So it's divided like this: body, speech, and mind. If we have control over these three aspects, we move away from ourselves. Now there's a further thing. If we adopt an attitude of welfare of all beings, if we become something like a world mover and take that attitude, something like a creative builder for others, we not only take away our egocentricity, but something more has to be added. A philosophy that says, in the first place, that these devas, these gods, these illuminating factors, these divine elements are waves, and waves dance and play. Watch any wave. Now, this is so when people take to the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, any ocean that has massive waves that come in. For example, on the west coast of Ireland, there are massive waves that come in. The coast is battered by the Atlantic, giving peninsulas, inlets, outlets, and so on. Ireland is a very small country, but when you now go around the periphery, you'll see it actually takes you a long time. There's a lot of mileage within it because you're going in, you're going out. It's a jagged coastline, all because it's battered by the Atlantic Ocean. The other side, the eastern coast, is not so battered. So people there will take advantage of that and see that they can take a surfboard, a piece of board, and with great skill and balance, ride the wave and delight in it. It's an echo of our childhood, way, way, way back, when we were probably on the shores of the seas in Africa, and we learned to live by the beach a long, long, youthful life. And the long, youthful life had nothing to do with the primordial genetic directives, namely streaming negative entropy on ourselves by sustaining our life, eating and drinking and so on, survival. And it had nothing to do also with procreation of the species. It is only the humans that have such a long, long childhood for this very development. And if we don't learn from that, then of course we have a long way to go. Of course, we can start changing it now. Every now is a new opportunity. Every moment is the last moment. So when we change that, we realize, well, there's a play of waves. We can have fun with it. A mansion of mirth is how Sri Ramakrishna describes it. It's a mansion of mirth. Two sides of the coin, Nitya on the one side, eternal, and Leela on the other. And when we do that, we see, well, actually, it's not so intimidating. It's not a serious thing. Some change occurred. I didn't like it. But change, the nature of nature itself is change. There's a saying, adopt, adapt, improve, taken from a youth organization, the Round Table organization for youths. I think if you arrive at the age of 40, then you're no longer a youth, and you have to move to some other socially uplifting club, if you will, like Lions International, something like that, or Rotary Club or something like that, businessmen's organization. And that is their motto, you see. They have this dictum, adopt, adapt, improve. I think it's a good one. We have to adopt immediately because we have no other choice. Then we have to adapt, and then we have to improve. We have to arrange a structure for improvement. So that's how we do it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Swami.
Lately, after all these meetings and all these thoughts and everything, I kind of having this, like, I turned from non-vegetarian to vegetarian, and I have a I'm just giving my thoughts here. I have a poly house where I grew vegetables and everything. And the thoughts are like this every time. Some of them, most of the time, it's positive thoughts, but sometimes even when you cut the leaves of spinach leaves and everything, or when you do any work, like you're hurting. I used to enjoy it a lot, the vegetable cultivation and all that. Now lately, it isn't that, when I go there, I wanted to let them grow and do that. I don't want to pick them up. That's becoming sensitive, and I don't like that. And I used to enjoy it more. And in this process, something I think I missed some logic where to the balance of it. Yeah, understand, Swami?
Yes, somebody once told me a joke. I became a vegetarian, he says, because I hate plants. My vengeance on plants is to eat them. So of course it's a humor. You see, this is the Jain position. A Jain position can be an extreme position whereby you have to wear a mask. Now, COVID made us all wear masks. But Jains have done it for centuries and centuries because even an insect they don't wish to inhale. This is ignoring the fact that right now, every breath you take is killing millions of bacteria. The human body is designed to be a bactericidal machine. One teardrop in the eye, diluted in 20-liter bucket of water, is effective as a germ killer. Containing Lysol is a disinfectant. Your skin itself is a germ killer. So how far do we go? You see, ahimsa is a quality, non-injury, that is often used in terms of vegetarians, non-vegetarian, and so on and so forth, erroneously. It is true that killing animals unnecessarily doesn't benefit anyone. Innocent animal, I don't think anybody has any difficulty in that moral stance that killing animals is wrong. Killing humans is wrong, killing animals is wrong. But for food, it's not about ahimsa. And this is where we may have a disagreement with some of the Vaishnavite vegetarians, for example, who go to the extreme that they won't take anything grown below the ground. So what is the balance that we should have? Firstly, we have to eat. And then what will we eat? No matter what we select to eat, something gets destroyed and converted into something else. Even meat will get converted into tissues and blood cells and so on. Now, on purely health grounds, meat, in my personal opinion and in many people's opinion, will be not a healthy diet because people will say that we are not constructed to eat meat. We're not constructed as the carnivores are constructed, such as the lion and so on and so forth. And good studies, I think, at Stanford University, going way, way back in the 1970s, I think, demonstrated very easily that stress hormones in animals about to be slaughtered and uric acid is released. And does that create stress in the human? And the conclusion is, if it happens in mice, it'll happen in humans. That's about as far as the experiment went. So there were two cages that were there, one with cereal food, one with cereal food mixed with butcher's blood, and electrical current passed through and measuring the reactions of each one. And the ones who got the non-vegetarian inputs fought to the death as a reaction to the electric shock. So what we eat is certainly important for us. And again, if we're to quote the Bhagavad Gita, then we can see in that same place 3 kinds of foods which are liked by different kinds of personality. So we see in the food that promotes vitality, energy, strength, health, joy, and cheerfulness. Food that is appetizing, food that is soothing, nourishing, and agreeable. This are liked by the Sattvic people because it promotes Sattva as the influence. Now, if you take that as a guide, you'll find that fruit in its natural condition ticks all of those criteria, all of those boxes. And so fruit, to be a fructarian rather than a vegetarian, seems theoretically to be an ideal diet. Now, I'm only talking theoretically, because the subject of diet is a controversial topic. It's also a complex topic. People are nutritionists, they train in nutrition and so on and so forth. And so I can only give you my interpretation of this. The point is that even if you eat fruit, what are you doing? You're not killing anything, of course. In fact, you're doing the tree a little bit of a favor, but you might be depriving birds of that food. Whichever way you look at it, if you are careful enough about it, or if you are sensitive enough about it, you'll be depriving or affecting some other species, no doubt. So we have to get over the sensitivity about this when we select and pick our food, on the basis that it is a divine gift given to us, that our digestive system is suitable for certain kinds of food, and this food is provided from the divine. This is why at the beginning of every meal, we quote the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter. We say that Brahman is the offering. Brahman is the hand that offers it. Brahman is the constituent, the ghee within the food. And Brahman also is the digestive fire. And he who sees Brahman in all things goes unto Brahman. Brahmapanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, and so on. So, why we repeat that is to see that divine in everything. If you do that, immediately it solves your problem. Every food becomes pure. And purity of food is nothing to do with hygiene in this context. It is only to do with the vibration of it. For example, if you go to a restaurant and somebody cooks the food, of course they may cook it with good intention and so on. We can have a little faith in that, but not necessarily. Supposing you go to a fancy restaurant, you have no way of knowing whether the chef just wants the food to look nice, of gourmet quality, or whether it is nutritious, whether he put love into it and so on. We're assuming he does, but there's no guarantee about it. And so there's a certain amount of spirituality in the kitchen. We shouldn't be over concerned with it, because Swami Vivekananda had that to say, we have to take religion out of the kitchen. Religion, I can only eat food if it's prepared by myself, or if it's prepared by a Brahmin or something like that. These have been some of the orthodox ways of thinking. But the fundamental principle behind it is important. And that is that food has a level of vibration. Now, it was Jagadish Chandra Bose who established that plants are sentient. And so, yes, when we pick something, no doubt, if we're sensitive, we can understand what he was saying. But by the same token, we can pick it as a gift. Lord, you gave this food to me, thank you. And the whole of the universe runs on sacrifice. That's what we're told. How does the world get created? The Upanishads tell us it is through yajna, only through sacrifice. Something is created when something is lost. You can't avoid it. There's a whole cycle of birth, life, and death. You can't avoid the birth, you can't avoid the life, and you can't avoid the death. Something has to die for something else to live. It's a simple principle. So take every food that you have with a sense of gratitude and thank the plant, the divinity within the plant, for sacrificing itself to you. The people in Hawaii, I'm told, the Polynesian people rather, when they kill a fish to eat, immediately, even before that, they make a prayer offering. Thanks for sacrificing yourself for me. And it's not only that, but all the products that we take from it. An aged cow, for example, that dies, we take the skin and make drums with it and so on, strings with the guts and all the rest of it. We do that. But as far as possible, we avoid killing anything. But we have to be realistic enough, pragmatic enough to understand that it's about health, not about ahimsa. Whatever is healthy, whatever is good, that you take, what increases your vitality. Fruit is the ideal substance for that. The principle, whatever is in its natural state and meets all the criteria of the senses is good for you. For example, fruit is good to look at, visually attractive. In its texture, we can catch its texture, we can catch its taste, its smell. All the senses are pleased by it in its natural state. Now, of course, as part of our human evolution, we discovered fire, and that was good for us because instead of spending enormous, vast amounts of time searching for food, digesting leaves, then we cook the plant instead, cook the leaves instead, and that is more easily digestible. That gives us more leisure time for discussing philosophy, for inquiring into what is the nature of existence itself, for developing the brain, for becoming more creative. And so the human digestion also had to adapt to cereal food. Prior to the revolution, the pastoral revolution, the agricultural revolution, where we were growing vast fields of cereals, taking grasses and adapting them more and more and more, improving them. We had to change our digestion also, and we changed our landscape. The landscape that was covered with forest was all cleared for fields of cereal. So we have to be pragmatic and accept everything as a divine offering, not just with the food that is given to us freely, but also the capacity to digest it freely. And in contrast to that, what of a rajasic type, somebody who is future orientated, somebody who is emotionally driven, somebody who is egocentric, and so on and so forth. Well, any food that is excessively bitter. Now we're not identifying any particular food, but you can work out for yourself what classes of food this applies to. Anything that is bitter, anything that's sour, anything that is overly saline or hot or pungent or burning or dry. Well, these are liked by the Rajasika, and by association, they are productive of what? Of pain and grief and disease. This one simple stanza could change the whole of your diet. And then what about those bent toward lack of activity, these people who are lackluster? Well, any food that is badly cooked or tasteless or putrid or stale or unclean. This is in the days before refrigerators, of course. And anything that is left over, it's food. It is liked by those of a tamasic nature, and therefore we can assume productive of tamas. These three simple stanzas, when you explore them are quite profound, and we can make our own insightful interpretations into it. Long and the short of it is, we cannot avoid destroying things, and we have to, before eating, thankful for it, and that we recognize the abundance within all these food substances that are provided. And if we are not cooking the food, those who are cooking the food, and also the capacity, the Lord himself comes as Vaishvana, a digestive fire, and that is the most important. Sometimes I can tell people a little controversially, you can see a peacock that has these beautiful feathers, this beautiful tail with these magnificent colors. See, you and I cannot produce these colors from the food we eat. And yet, if we analyze the peacock's diet, it's a little bit of grit here, a seed there. It's nothing special. It's not divided into proteins and carbohydrates and vitamins. But why does it produce these colors that you and I cannot do? It is because it has a power of digestion. We can put it like this: the Lord of the universe is sitting there, transforming all the material into something different, into cells, and not just standard cells, different cells. It's a wonderful miracle that occurs. I think the story of Genesis is very powerful. That in a Garden of Eden, that is, in a universe supplied with all the very best that nature has to offer, we can pluck anything we like, and we have the capacity to digest it. And proper digestion of proper food produces a joyful countenance, produces health. And where health is there, physical health is there, a cheerful mind is there, and vice versa. A cheerful environment. Imagine living in a garden with an abundance of food or abundance of fruit. But you see, when we start doubting nature, start putting fear involved in it, start raising up an egoistic sense, then the tree of knowledge that we are forbidden from eating from, knowledge of what? Is knowledge of all the materialistic things in life, away from divine things. So in every activity, harvesting food, eating food, digesting food, exercise, and all these other things, these can all be spiritualized. These can all be divine activities. Work itself is a divine activity as well, if we take it like this. Well, I hope that was helpful. I'm not sure.
Sure, 100%. Thanks, Swamiji.
Oh, sorry. I had the microphone plugged in.
The only question I raise is, in that case, then if one, this is my other mind tells me that, okay, then you can eat these are all, I know you gave me analogy of rat and eating non-vegetarian and vegetarian, but with the food is all equal and it's for Brahman gift, then all other, like you tell me, fish, when they catch fish, pray the fish for the fish. So then there is not that much difference between eating non-vegetarian food and vegetarian food, in case that there's sometimes you have no choice, the little choice of eating vegetarian food when you go to places. And so there is not that much difference, and you just pray for the God as a gift. And
well, except in the categories that I've just described, and firstly, and secondly, food is only energetic and vital if it is easily digestible. Meat is not easily digestible.
True.
So that's your criteria, you see. The criteria is, you put it this way: if I have a devotional attitude toward digestion, the Lord of the universe is digesting my food, will I not try to make it easy for the Lord to digest? Yeah,
Yeah.
Lord, I'm offering you something. I don't want you to spend a lot of time trying to break it down with great difficulty. Out of pure love for you, I'll make it easy to digest. Think of it in this way. So
In
you
that
take
case,
the food that is nutritious and most easily digestible. This is
yeah,
the food, the best food for all people to eat.
perfect. In that case, then the upavas is related to the same thing you just told, that you give. What is upavas means in English? Not eating any food for a whole day, uh, like fasting.
Well, that's something different, though, you see.
Okay. Okay.
So if we're on to fasting, there's a different kind of thing, you see.
Okay.
You can have fasting and slowing. But you see, people fast for different reasons. The most fundamental reason for fasting is to purify the mind. It has nothing to do with the body. Now you can take, so for example, our Muslim brothers and sisters at Ramadan will fast from sunrise to sunset, dawn to dusk. And that includes not even taking water. But what's the point of it if during the day all you're meditating on is food? So that then gives you indigestion because gastric juice is being released. As soon as you think of food, gastric juice is being released in the stomach. Saliva is being released into the mouth. So the idea really is to strengthen the will and direct all your attention toward the creator source of the universe. So fasting is done for two reasons originally. One is as a sense of self-discipline, where you discipline the senses and increase the potency of your will. Now, coincidentally, that can have health benefits also. But you see, the health benefits come with a few other things with it. If you don't eat with the right mindset, if you don't eliminate waste products, if you don't exercise sufficiently, if you're under anxiety and stress, if you overeat, then you'll have consequences. And the most common consequence will be storage within the body of things that should be eliminated. Toxic material, encumbrances, to turn out to be encumbrances within the human body, in which case radical measures could be necessary. So, for example, I know a man who suffered from many, as a young man, many different kinds of diseases. All those diseases left him when he went on a supervised 40-day fast. Now, that wasn't exactly no liquids. It was including, water and various other things, and it was under supervision. But solid food, nothing. Now, some people can do it and some people cannot. Everybody is constitutionally different. But that is there for health reasons, you see. So there's that aspect to it, no doubt, yes. But what has that got to do with spirituality? Well, it can be, I want to make the Lord's body healthy, so let me get rid of all the toxic material through fasting. You see, any activity that is done, if it's done with the proper, orientation towards spirituality and spiritual life, is a spiritual activity. But it could easily be taken. Let's take, for example, exercise. There are people who can exercise, no doubt, with aerobics and one thing and another, and they're really looking for health. Even yoga, in many yoga studios, the emphasis in many of them is on physical health only, nothing else. But those yogis who developed the system systematically, scientifically, which we call Hatha Yoga, they emphasized postures suitable for meditation. And they did it in conjunction with the idea of purifying the body. Purified body, purified mind. Same thing as Sri Krishna says, in terms of sattvic food, or sorry, sattvic sadhana. So, or tapasya, that kind of tapasya that makes things clean is a physical tapasya. And then that's important. Even Patanjali in Patanjali Yoga Sutras puts it as one of these niyam, particular observances. Cleanliness of body, cleanliness of mind. We do that by carefully eating. You know, people eat very quickly. You can take the best ingredients in the world and with a rapacious appetite, swallow them whole and create indigestion for yourself. And there's nothing to do with thankfulness or appreciation or any of these aspects of worship. And so chewing the food slowly, masticating it nicely. People used to say, chew your food 30 times or something like that. Not sure if I agree with that. You spend the whole day chewing, and people are different. But certainly, digesting the food with appreciation, slowly, appreciating the taste. That's the best way to extract the best nutrition from the food. You see, I mean, in the mouth, the chemicals are released, the enzymes are released through the saliva, and you're taking solid food in, and the jaws and the teeth act like a crusher, and certain chemicals introduced suitable so that you can swallow it. And the mechanism for swallowing is something like a conveyor belt, a vertical conveyor belt. And then that goes into a big pot called the stomach. And the stomach acid is taking care of it. Everything is breaking down. Proteins are being broken down through pepsin. Hydrochloric acid sits there. And the small intestine is dealing with carbohydrates. And then ultimately there's an extraction. It's a marvelous system through the small intestines that carry it on a train to every single cell of the body. And in that same train, taking away all the toxic material through the lymphatic system and arranging waste disposal. So all of this is a wonderful machine that we call human body, and it's God-given. And we should be thankful for it and appreciative of it. But we should make sure that we allow the blood to cure itself, to do its job, to be the goods train that takes nutrition and takes waste products away, not interfere with it through stress, anxiety, wrong eating, overeating, eating the wrong kinds of food, and so on. And then,
Thanks, Swamiji.
yeah. All right, good. Have a good evening. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami. Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.